All right, excellent.
Wow.
Hi, Britta. Thanks a lot for coming along.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to be here.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to hear about your Kürzi chocolates. I've got a couple here just to see what they're like. You can see them in a few different stores. They are absolutely delicious. So why don't we start finding out a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got into making chocolate in Switzerland as a US.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Britta Kürzi. So a lot of people think I'm like a 90-year-old Swiss woman that's been making chocolate like in the family for centuries. But I actually moved from the United States to Switzerland in 2017.
Wow.
So yeah, in 2017, I moved here. I had lived in Asheville, North Carolina beforehand. And Asheville is like this really cool kind of tiny little hippy dippy mountain town in Western North Carolina. And there are a lot of, it's a big entrepreneur scene, a lot of people doing really creative businesses and stuff like this, but I was working in a corporate job while I was there, but always really inspired by the artistic scene and everything around me. And then I moved here in 2017. I had some time, so I did kind of like this Swiss immersion program, where in the morning I was learning German, and then in the afternoon I was learning how to make chocolate.
Perfect.
I have been vegan for many years, so since like 2015, so before I moved to Switzerland. So when I moved to Switzerland, I really thought that there would be like a plethora of vegan milk chocolates because milk chocolate was invented here in Switzerland. And then when I found out that that wasn't the case, I was like, okay, well, how hard could it be to make my own chocolate? And it turns out very, very hard. So I enrolled in this really intense 6-month bean to bar chocolate making course with École Chocolat. And I learned about, because sometimes you can Google things and the first Google result's gonna say like, put cocoa powder with some coconut milk and then you got milk chocolate. And then I was like, but what is cocoa powder? I'm not a person that can just like, do things halfway. I have to kind of dive all the way in. And so then I learned about what is cacao, which is the main ingredient that goes into making chocolate. And then, I learned that there are different genetic varieties in cacao. And then I learned that different regions are going to have different genetic varieties, but also a different terroir. And then it's going to be also a different fermentation protocol. And then I was like, but I'm learning about all of this, but I'm not really understanding it because we don't grow cacao in Switzerland, we just eat chocolate. And so then I actually traveled to the Dominican Republic and I lived on a cacao farm to learn about fermentation. And then I went to Costa Rica and Nicaragua to further my education there. And then I actually ended in, and this is going to sound a little like hearsay here in Switzerland, but I ended in Belgium to finish my chocolate school. And that was at Ghent University, which actually is one of the top 5 food science programs in the world. And they have a lot of cacao PhDs that are there that are doing really interesting research when it comes to like furthering the chocolate industry and learning more about some of the different issues in cacao and stuff. And so my education, it was like, I didn't decide one day that I'm going to be a chocolate expert. It was just like the more I learned, the more that I needed to learn. And yeah, so then I kind of did a world tour and now I'm back here in Switzerland and then now I have a chocolate company.
Amazing, amazing. What a great story, because a lot of people think it's overnight success, but actually it's taken a lot of work.
Yes, it definitely takes a lot of work. And it's, I think if you were a sane person and you were thinking like, what is my first venture into entrepreneurship going to be? It wouldn't be build a chocolate factory in Switzerland.
Yeah.
But when you discover something that you're really passionate about, and when you find an industry like the chocolate industry that has a lot of different issues with it, and then you feel inspired to sort of be a member that's disrupting the industry in a way, which I'm doing it not just by the veganism, but also the bean to bar chocolate movement is actually a rebellious kind of counter movement to this mass industrialization of chocolate making, which is basically what we see when we go into a grocery store. We have this illusion of having so many different choices because the packagings are all different, but really it's the same 4 companies making the same chocolate, just under different brands and different names and everything. And so we have the illusion of choice, but there's so much more variety in cacao and in chocolate. And so, yeah, that's sort of what the bean to bar movement is trying to showcase. On the other hand, it also brings kind of like a full circle ethics to the approach. It's not just about, the quality of the ingredients. It's also about making sure that the people that are growing the ingredients are being compensated fairly for their work and for their effort. which because of the big imbalance of power that exists with the 4 to 5 main companies purchasing 80% of the world's cacao, and then 3 to 5 million small shareholder farmers trying to negotiate fair rates. It's not really, the power is more on the major company sides, and so the rates are very low, and you're not seeing a good quality of life for those who are growing these products, that are making these products that we enjoy so much here in Switzerland. So yeah.
I can see the passion with you. Well, what is this kind of, I know that your philosophy is also about using business for good.
Yes.
So how does that come into your company and this bean to bar movement? What is that, and how does that, how do you take that philosophy on board?
So I'm really inspired by French Broad Chocolate Company, which is this chocolate factory in Asheville, North Carolina. And their philosophy was using business as a force of good. And I always thought, yes, okay, that makes sense to me. We live in a capitalistic society, and we should be using our business as a force for good. And so that means to me, not just making ingredients that are not just making products that I think, I really want consumers to feel delighted, right? Like I want someone to try my chocolate, and actually my favorite reaction is when someone is not vegan and then they're like, but I thought you said you made vegan chocolate. And then I was like, yes, this is what I want. But so I'm hoping to delight everyone that buys the chocolate, but on the other side, I'm hoping to, all of my money that I'm investing in the ingredients and everything, I'm working together with partners that are also doing good in the countries where the cacao is being grown. So for example, one of my partners in Tanzania, Cocoa Kamili, they pay 35% above market rate for wet cacao beans to the farmer partners every single year. Wet cacao, it's kind of hard to explain. It's much heavier than the dry cacao, and that's what the cacao rate and commodity is based on, is dry cacao product. It weighs around, I would say, 20% more when it's wet cacao. So they're paying much higher prices. And the farmers are actually not having to take over the fermentation protocol or the drying. Fermentation protocol takes around 7 days if you're doing a proper fermentation protocol. Could take 5 days depending on the variety of cacao, could take longer depending on how often you're going to it. And then the drying takes usually around 10 to 15 days. So you're not just paying them more money, you're also saving them around like 15 to 20 days of labor. And so we're just hoping that we can use these more direct trade models, bring more money into the communities where the cacao is being grown, encourage and incentivize good cacao products to be grown, good organic agricultural practices to be used. And then, making sure that we're not just moving into this world where everything is mass produced and we lose the genetic varieties of cacao that are existing that are very rare, and incentivizing farmers to grow this really amazing cacao, ferment this really amazing cacao.
And how long does it take for you from, say, start to finish to create a delicious cacao bar?
Okay, so one of the hardest parts is actually sourcing the cacao. So that has nothing to do with actually making it. It means like finding good partners that are growing good cacao, but then also making sure that their fermentation protocol is really good. So a lot of nerdy research is involved. And then a lot of like partner relationship is involved as well. But as soon as the cacao gets here, the first step that I have to do is actually hand sorting, because some of the cacao is going to have like pieces of jute bag in it, or there might be like a rusty nail in it. I mean, you have to remember these ingredients are coming from other countries. They're getting transported on these ships. You have to make sure that you're doing like a quality control to sort out any nonsense that could be in the jute bags. Then after that, I have to roast the cacao. Roasting is kind of an art in the chocolate making world. And so that can take anywhere, depending on the chocolate maker, from 15 minutes to an hour to roast cacao. And then after it roasts, it needs to sit and cool for 6 to 8 hours. And then after it sits and cools for 6 to 8 hours, I put it through a machine which separates the outer portion of the shell from the inner portion of the cacao nib. The cacao nib is basically the meat that's responsible. The meat. I'm not a vegan. It's the part that makes chocolate taste like chocolate, and that's going to go into a machine called a melanger, and then it needs to melange a bit, which is basically it's refining it, but it's also combining the cacao together with air to get rid of certain volatiles that exist. So you don't want to do that too much, otherwise you burn away too much flavor. But you also need to do it enough, otherwise you don't get a nice balanced chocolate product. And then you add any other ingredients. This process takes usually around 3 days.
Wow.
And then after these 3 days, you can finally remove the chocolate, and then you get to temper it. And this is where a normal chocolatier starts their process.
Wow.
The chocolate is already made, and then you put it into a tempering machine. If I were a normal chocolatier and maybe a sane person, this is where I would have started the chocolate. And then after it's tempered, it's going to be taking the chocolate from the liquid form, making it into a nice shiny bar, and then we hand package it, and then it's ready to enjoy.
Wow, what a journey.
Give it around 24 hours to let the flavors sit in, but then, yeah, it's pretty much ready to enjoy.
Wow. And you're a startup, and yet you really source it ethically. Your bean to bar movement, using business as a force of good, and you hand sort the cacao beans as well.
I have a couple interns, but
Okay.
no, but yeah, I hand sort as well. I mean, I do every step of the process, but I think it's important to learn every step of the process. So when you're training or hiring people, which hopefully in the future we'll be able to do, you can really, realize what can go wrong each step of the process. And yeah, I think it's important when you're starting your business to already use good ethical practices, because otherwise you can continue to make excuses along the way for why you can't do something. And so it's important for me to live my values. It's also the reason for being an entrepreneur, is because then you are able to live your values and you're able to live your vision and do what you think is benefiting this world, not just have a job.
Brilliant. Beautiful. With that, I think we should maybe open up for questions. Also in the room and also on the call. So maybe we'll start on the call first, because Britta's here so she can answer questions in the room afterwards. So I'll go on mute, and if someone wants to answer, someone just unmute, please.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, whereabout are you based?
I'm located in Zurich myself, but we have a 70 square meter chocolate factory that we built in Schlieren, which is just like a little past in Zurich. So Canton, Zurich.
Yeah. Thanks.
How big are the operations at the moment?
We are very tiny. So we have a 70 square meter chocolate factory, and I'm able to manufacture. My largest machine does around 60 kilograms of chocolate at a time. I have another machine that does around 12 kilograms of chocolate at a time. That's what I do the vegan white chocolate in. And I'm really excited because I have some new vegan white chocolate coming out. Yeah. And then I have 2 little baby machines, which do 4 kilograms at a time. And that's what I started with when I made a little baby chocolate factory in a spare bedroom in our apartment. And our neighbors really loved us.
Amazing. Good question. Thanks, Emmy. When's the vegan?
Is it a one-woman show at the moment?
So it's me. My husband supports as well. I have 3 now interns from ETH. They're all food science nerds. So we actually met at a cocoa hackathon, which is a great place to meet chocolate interns. But yeah, we're super tiny. Now we're going to be soon. I'm going to have my second business actually. So we're going to have a customer-facing shop together with another friend of mine that has another vegan business. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to hire and grow a little bit more soon. So we shall see.
Ooh, tell us more about that. Is it going to be a physical shop?
It's going to be a physical shop, yeah. It's going to be a nice plant-based indulgent experience that's going to be all about like using the best ingredients, making sure that everyone can have I'm a foodie. I always have been a foodie, and I believe that being vegan should add to your quality of life. It has added to my quality of life a lot. I experience a lot of joy out of eating, and so that's what this fellow entrepreneur and I hope to do with our space that we're building. And actually, she makes just the most amazing cinnamon roll, so and like indulgent chocolatey products and stuff. So it's gonna be just a lot of fun.
When's the white chocolate?
The white chocolate, it'll be coming out when we open the shop officially. But you can already actually find a sugar-free version of the white chocolate at Lola's Vegan Kitchen. She does a cake with it right now. So.
Yum. Thanks, Emmy.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, please.
One is, you're getting raw material from wherever and you're processing it. And how different is that cocoa compared to something that is packaged and you buy it in a supermarket here?
So the cocoa beans that you're buying at the supermarket here, they're okay.
Or maybe even the ground up cocoa, like the powder.
Okay, so cacao is one of the most complex food ingredients that you can find. It has over 600 different unique aroma notes. It's way more complex than coffee and more complex than wine. So even the 2 different varieties of cacao that I import, which have the same fermentation protocol, are wildly different than one another. The genetic variety mixture is also a lot different. The terroir in which it's grown is different. Like there are so many different variables that go into making the flavor of cacao. It's absolutely insane. But probably the variety that you're buying at the store is going to be an amelinado cacao coming from either Ghana or Ivory Coast. This is your bulk cacao. It's very resistant to genetic disease and stuff like this, but it's not known for its fine flavor potential. Usually, if you buy it at the store, it's going to be really heavily processed. The reason that they want to do that is because if I'm a mass manufacturer of chocolate or cacao products, I want every customer to have the exact same experience every single time they buy a cacao product from me. And so the only way that I can really achieve that is by over processing these ingredients, over roasting, for example. So you have a very heavy roast profile that's usually applied to cacao beans here. If you're talking about cacao powder, it's going to go through a process called alkalization, which is going to make it darker in color. It's going to make it more uniform in color, but it's basically going to take away any type of unique flavor profile that could exist in it other than that rich cocoa roasty flavor that you're used to chocolate tasting like. So if you were to get a cacao from us and taste that, it would be much more acidic. It would be much more complex, and you would taste it in your mouth probably 5 to 10 minutes after you ate it. Whereas usually a cacao that you buy at the store, it'll go away after like 1 minute. You won't have that aftertaste. It'll just be there while you're eating it, and then you'll forget about it afterward. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, this is very interesting because I like always read the ingredients list of everything, and you know, products that seem identical on the ingredients list, they just taste different, and I'm just like wondering why. Is it bad, or did it go bad, or whatever? So yeah, it seems like it's a pretty complex process. Second question, what's the biggest economic threat to this type of adventure? I assume coming from big companies, because they compete on price. Is it only that, or is it also like legislation and, let's say, passing inspections or things like that all the time?
So obviously we can't compete with price with a company that's making billions of product every single week. And most, as I had mentioned, like there are 4 to 5 major companies that are responsible for purchasing 80% of the world's cocoa and then processing that and then selling that to other companies. They're companies that you actually probably haven't even heard of because they're cocoa processors, and they're not actually like candy manufacturers such as like Nestle and stuff like this. And so because of that, they're able to mass manufacture these products, make it very, very, very cheap. So we can't really compete with that. But in terms of like red tape and stuff like that, and there's not really that much that we need to overcome. The issue becomes when we market ourselves as like artisanal and bean to bar and stuff like this. There is no legislation around these marketing terms. And so then you go into Aldi and then you see like single origin artisanal bean to bar chocolate from Aldi that's like 1 Swiss franc for like 100 grams. And then you're like, okay, so basically the big manufacturers can kind of mimic our marketing terms that we use to differentiate ourselves. And so that's been a huge challenge in our industry, figuring out like how do we educate the consumers and how do we protect some of these marketing terms so that we can use them against basically these industry giants who are just kind of using the same terminology for a product that's wildly different. And so we're trying to learn a lot from like what the coffee industry did to differentiate the specialty coffee from like the regular coffee and stuff like this. But it's craft chocolate right now is like where craft coffee was probably 30 years ago. We're like the Wild West right now. Everyone's trying to figure it out. It's like pioneer stuff.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Anyone else on the call that hasn't said anything? Jan, maybe. Yeah, go ahead, Jan.
That's great stuff. I'm curious if you're also interested in the health benefits and effects of chocolate.
Yes, I mean, so there are a lot of health benefits to eating an artisanal bean to bar chocolate, and it was something that I really thought about at the beginning. Do I want to market myself as being a healthier alternative? Because when you're talking about using the raw ingredients, having a fresher made product, and you're not processing it as much, you have a lighter roast profile, you have a lot more antioxidant properties in our chocolate compared to something that you would buy at the store. Then I realized, for me, what's most important is that people know that they're going to be getting an amazing flavor experience. And so I made the conscious decision not to necessarily market the health benefits, but more just to focus on the straight up indulgence and the flavor that people are going to be getting from the chocolate. But it was an interesting thing to consider at the beginning because I know that people are much more health conscious now. Our bean to bar dark chocolate contains like a 30% sugar reduction to like a normal bar of chocolate. To be a dark chocolate, you legally have to have 42% cocoa solids. So most dark chocolates that you actually buy are going to have around 50% sugar in them, even though they're dark chocolate. So yeah, it was hard for me to sort of decide at the beginning, how much do I want to focus on that and how much do I want to just focus on the flavor? And now I've made the decision to really focus straight up on.
I agree, it's probably the right call. People are more willing to pay for indulgence and experience.
Yeah, I wanted to focus on what I'm providing people in terms of adding to their life rather than focus on like lack of, like when you hear less sugar or no milk or I just always feel like you're taking something away from someone and I want to like give to them. So yeah.
Makes sense. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Jan. Well, we've probably got time for maybe one more question, and then
Shop going to be?
go ahead, Mirko.
Where is your shop going to be? Do you already have a location?
Yes. Do you know where Brittas Journey is near Lokkergut?
Lokkergut.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Tyrone will tell me where it is. I'll come back.
We'll have some like more official announcements coming out soon. We haven't like rolled out the official announcements and everything, but that will be coming pretty soon. Hopefully I can maybe share on your.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Heel leuk.
Thank you. Good question. All right. Just to wrap up, maybe then, how can people contact you? Are you looking for more interns to maybe help out? Yeah.
So if you're interested in a chocolate internship and working for a vegan company, I would be interested. Please follow Kürzi Kakao on Instagram. Please like Kürzi Kakao on Facebook. Contact me there. Write me a message. You can also visit my website, which is kurzicakao.ch. Feel free to contact us on that platform as well. And if you're interested in working as a shop assistant, we are hiring immediately for a shop assistant working in a plant-based bakery/chocolate shop. So
As part of the perks, do we get to try as well?
yes.
Yes.
So all of my interns are very happy that they're paid in chocolate as well. And if you work at the shop, I'm sure you'll get a lot of good flavor experiences. So
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you very much, Britta. It's been a fantastic conversation. I really look forward to seeing your success continue to grow, and hopefully we'll come down to your shop and try this indulgent experience.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yay,
Cool.
looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.